Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Back in the Guerilla Sports studios after, it was only, 3 days? 4 days in Vegas? It felt like 2 months. We were there for, look, I've got a limit on Vegas. The older I've gotten, I've got a limit on. Actually, you know what? Even when I was younger, I had a limit on Vegas, and it was usually about 3 days. We were there one extra day, and I was ready to come home. It was a really fun week. We were there for the NHL draft, there for the NHL awards. We got to see Nathan MacKinnon finally take home a Hart Trophy as the NHL's MVP to go along with his Ted Lindsay Award as the most outstanding player in the NHL, as voted by the players of the NHL. So that was a really fun night. We got to see the new Fontainebleau Hotel. Beautiful hotel. A little bit confusing. A little bit hard to navigate, but a really cool venue to have the awards at. We got to actually kind of watch the awards this year from an overhanging perch. That was cool. We had never been able to be on the award show floor before. And then, of course, we got to go to the NHL draft. Got to see the draft inside the Las Vegas Sphere. And I think that's where I want to start very, very briefly. The NHL draft and the experience that we had at the Sphere, because the NBA has gone crazy this week in free agency, and the NHL right now, as I'm talking about this, is currently losing its mind. We will have a Guerrilla Hockey show coming up basically immediately after this one, where we'll be getting into everything NHL, free agency. Tampering is apparently non-existent anymore. That's apparently not a thing. So here in about 20-ish, 25 minutes, we will have a show fully dedicated to what's happening in the NHL and free agency. I want to talk briefly about NHL draft here. We're going to talk a little bit about what is already going on in the NHL with that free agency. It's supposed to open right now at 10 a.m. Mountain, but there have been signings going on all morning. There's trades coming through. Things are going nuts. And then we'll briefly touch on what some of the bigger contracts that have been doled out in the NBA this week. But I'm trying to move quickly because there's so much going on in the NHL that we need to get to all of that. I can't believe what I'm seeing out of the NHL this morning. Quickly starting, though, let's talk about the NHL draft over the weekend. I thought it was a fantastic event at the Las Vegas Sphere. And the part that I think was the most common thing that I heard folks talking about, because we had everyone together, all in the same room, and you will not convince me that as my phone continues to blow up with NHL signing after signing after signing continue to roll in, that isn't a result of having everybody together in one centralized location. Macklin Celebrini goes first overall. That was completely expected. We all saw that coming. But I think what people didn't quite expect was the overwhelming success of the weekend and the draft in general. I heard nothing but rave reviews, and the overwhelming sentiment was, why are they trying to go away from this? Why is the league wanting to do this and then go to the decentralized format? I really do. I think we are seeing in real time play out what happens when you get folks together. Chris Tanev, rights traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs on the draft floor. He signs a new 6-year deal, 4.5 per. Oh man, I had another one on my list, all went away. It's just been fascinating to watch this. And Jake Gensel, why was his name escaping me? Jake Gensel, rights traded over the weekend, gets a deal done in Tampa. I don't get why you'd go away from this format. I really don't. It was nothing but successful, and I think you see the power of having folks together in one room. Not to mention, the NFL and NBA had to be absolutely kicking themselves for not being the first ones to put on a draft or just a league event at the Sphere. The views, this photo you're seeing here on the screen right now, that's a photo that I took. That is not a wallpaper that was specifically designed for your phone. It was unbelievably immersive, unbelievably realistic, and the NHL hit it out of the park, and I think we're seeing a weird shockwave of that. And I do want to talk about the fact, look, we got everyone together, and apparently the NHL said, hey, since we're getting everyone together one last time, we'll kind of throw the tampering rules out. Signings have been dribbling in all day since last night in the NHL. Free agency was supposed to open at 10 a.m. Here are the reported signings of free agents since this morning. Jake Gensel, Chris Tanev, Matt Duchene, Tyler Toffoli, Sam Lafferty. And the names just continue to roll in as Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault have signed deals with the Nashville Predators, as the Predators are suddenly looking to become contenders in the NHL's Central Division. Again, I don't really have a problem with tampering. There it is, Tyler Bertuzzi, officially 4 years, $5.5 million per in Chicago. Another deal that was reported as early as 7 a.m. Mountain Time this morning. The NHL adjusted their rules several years ago to allow for conversations to happen in the week leading up to free agency. But a couple years ago, they changed those rules and said, we're doing away with the tampering period. We don't want all of our signings getting out and being known before free agency opens. Kind of takes away from the event of it all, wouldn't you say? Well, just watching all these deals roll in this morning, I was really excited. I had on my rundown that I sent to Jay more big names available than ever this year. And they've all been scooped up. They've all been scooped up before the window was supposed to open. The other big news coming in out of the NHL right now, Jacob Chychrun traded to the Washington Capitals. There are teams gearing up in the NHL. We got salary cap movement for the first time in 4 years. And NHL teams are making splashes that we typically only see in the NBA. And I'm actually going to quickly jump to the NBA just because Jay, I apologize to you back there in the control room. I'm going out of order here. Stuff's going crazy. I don't know what's happening here. So I want to jump quickly to NBA free agency because when over in the NHL, you got people like Yakov Trenin exceeding the salary projections we were seeing. Yakov Trenin was projected to be signing somewhere around 3.3, and we had Evan Rowell on the show. He and I were laughing, saying, that's crazy. I loved Yakov Trenin. I loved watching him play here in Colorado. Hard-nosed guy, big, strong player with some speed and a touch of skill on top. He is a bottom six player, a fourth-line center. 3.3 I thought was crazy. He just signed for 3.5 in Minnesota. We got to get to all of that because teams are going crazy in the NHL. But I want to talk very quickly NBA because we saw some crazy deals handed out over there as well this past week. It's not uncommon in the NBA to have big names on the move like what we're seeing in the NHL, where it is uncommon. This happens every season in the NBA. Klay Thompson reported to be seen here in Denver over this past week as a potential landing spot. He's got a couple other suitors out there as his time with the Golden State Warriors is finally up. He is yet to make a decision, so we're keeping an eye on that. I know I've talked to several folks here in Denver that would say that would be a pretty great fit, especially to replace a guy like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who has officially walked away from the Denver Nuggets, signing a 3-year, $66 million deal with the Orlando Magic. So the Denver Nuggets are officially on the market looking for help. Klay Thompson would be a big boost for them if they can make the money work. Paul George, 4 years, $212 million with the Philadelphia 76ers. Again, it always does just blow my mind. Paul George is a very good player. Very good player. But it is just crazy the amount of money that is available to throw around in the NBA with the smaller rosters for players that are good, very good, but not necessarily, elite, top, best at their position. Again, I'm not saying that Paul George is not a very good basketball player. He is. 4 years, $212 million. Chris Paul, who I feel like has been playing basketball in the NBA since I was 5. 1 year, $11 million. With the San Antonio Spurs as he continues his hunt to get an NBA ring and an NBA championship. Now, the part of all of this that I think is, I don't want to say the most interesting, but I've often complained about the luxury tax window ability in the NBA. that the salary cap isn't really all that real, because you can blow right past it. You pay a little bit of a fine. The NBA has implemented new salary cap rules. And you know, guys, my original goal was to be able to go over those changes on this show. But I'm going to read a tweet here from Harrison Wynn, who covers the Denver Nuggets for DNVR Sports here in Colorado. I know Harrison, smart guy, very dialed in, big-time basketball guy, knows what he's talking about. The NBA salary cap was already so confusing that barely any fans and most media didn't understand it. This new CBA made it even more complicated. It's terrible. You can be under the cap, you can be over the cap, there's a first apron, there's a second apron. Why even have a salary cap? I wanted to go over all of it. I can't make heads or tails of this. This is something that I mean, you've got to like really take the time to sit down and understand exactly what it is that you're looking at. You got to really be familiar with the NBA CBA to even know what you're looking at. We talked a lot this past last week about things that leagues could do to just help make the game more palatable, more understandable, more easy to digest in terms of the salary cap, while also maybe benefiting teams that I suggested, hey, if you draft a player, maybe you have a rule where that player, if you draft and develop a player and you're signed to your full roster, maybe you're in a situation where you get a little bit of a lesser cap hit. I think that would work great. To do stuff like this, to just add layers and layers of confusion, just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Let's jump over to the Euro Cup real fast. We are in the round of 16. Yesterday, Spain blasts Georgia 4-1 to move on, and England moves through as well. Yesterday, they await results today from France and Belgium, Portugal and Slovenia. France and Belgium going, I believe they just started here at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Portugal and Slovenia starting at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. I've had a ton of fun watching that. We've got some big Euro football fans here at Guerilla Sports. I give them a hard time. Offsides is, imagine that, offside is a joke in every sport, except for football maybe. But I've had a lot of fun following along. It's been great to have this kind of as a lead up to the Olympics, which are coming up here this month. It's July 1st. This month, the Olympics opening ceremonies kick off. Going back to the draft real fast, we have a couple more shots of the sphere here that I just wanted to get displayed. It really was, guys. It was an outstanding event. I couldn't recommend highly enough making your way to the Sphere in Las Vegas if you have the opportunity, whether it be for a concert, a show. You know, I think they have some type of IMAX type show that runs every day that you can go in that just really demonstrates the abilities of the Sphere. That one right there is my absolute favorite. Anytime there was a trade, they projected, it looked like the entire arena was inside of a giant hockey net, and I could not believe how realistic it looked. Everyone was in awe. There was all weekend long members of the media, NHL executives, players, draftees. Every time they put a new graphic up there was an audible gasp. People were clearly impressed. I thought it was a great event. I thought it was something that the NHL, I think they should seriously be looking at scrapping the plans of not hosting the draft in person anymore and saying, we just got to go back to the Sphere every year. I was told that there was maybe some of that internal discussion being happened by the NHL or being had by the NHL behind the scenes as the weekend kind of progressed. But I don't know if that was just maybe guys, bumping shoulders saying, dang, this was really cool. It's a shame it's our last one. Or if there were any actual serious talks of, do we need to rethink this and keep this going here at the Sphere every single year? We'll see. All right, I'm going to jump to NHL free agency a bit here. And truthfully, guys, I may end up cutting this one short and just cutting over to Guerilla Hockey. I was not expecting things to blow up the way that they have so quickly this morning with NHL free agency. So as the deals continue to come in here, Elias Lindholm, 7 years, 7.75 in Boston. Victor Arvidsson going to Edmonton. And the big ones, the Nashville Predators, maybe scoop up the two biggest name forwards available on the market. Steven Stamkos, 4 years, $8 million per year. I've seen some chatter already this morning that that's maybe a little bit too much. Look, Steven Stamkos scored 40 goals last year. He scored 60 goals in this league before. He had 80 points last year. I get it. When you look at the production numbers, it's on the decline. And when you look at the analytic numbers, it's on the decline. That's a two-time Stanley Cup champion right there, a four-time Stanley Cup finalist. We're going to get more into the Nashville Predators on the Guerilla Hockey Show because they are in the Avs Central Division, and they continue to make moves that puzzle me a bit. I'm just going to be completely honest. The other name that they snatch up, Jonathan Marchessault, maybe the other most available forward on this year's free agent class. And they get him locked in at 5.5, which is no joke, less than what I thought we were going to see Jonathan Marchessault sign for. Had a career year last year, Stanley Cup champion 2 years ago, and that is another big name. Look, I mentioned it that the NBA is not, it's very normal in the NBA to see big name, high profile players hitting the free agent list. That is just not something that is overly common in the NHL. When you have guys that you like, you hold on to them. You find ways to get it done. Jonathan Marchessault, Steven Stamkos, Sharon Govich in Calgary. Those are big names. The Steven Stamkos one, I think, is maybe one of the most puzzling free agents that we've seen in the NHL in the last few years. I'm honestly surprised that he made it there. I'm surprised that the Tampa Bay Lightning were so okay not only walking away from a player that I mentioned, 40 goals, 80 points last year. He's their captain. That's like letting the Denver Nuggets letting Jamal Murray just walk. Because they're like, we can get something better. We can find something else. I don't know. I'm really surprised to see them being completely okay losing that player for nothing. The cap is going up this year in the NHL for the first time in 4 years. Yet, if you look around the league, there are teams that are really positioned well to make use of that extra cap space. And there are teams that are still squeezed at the salary cap and desperately needed the $4 million bump that we saw this year. It went to $4 million, a little bit up from the projected, I believe it was 3.5 that we were expecting. Part of that is because the NHL had a great year in revenue and an even better playoffs revenue with the New York Rangers going to the Eastern Conference Final and the Edmonton Oilers getting all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. Nice bump in revenue. And I think you're seeing NHL teams wanting to make use of this, wanting to jump in and spend the money and put it to good use and help improve their teams. The Chicago Blackhawks. There are a couple of these teams I will say. The Chicago Blackhawks, you don't build your team through free agency, folks. No matter the sport. You don't. Find me again, the NBA is so hard because the LA Lakers did it. But yeah, if you just get LeBron and all of his buddies to come to your team, I guess it's a little bit different. When you look around the NHL, the NFL, teams that are larger rosters that aren't so dependent on just one or two players to win games like you are in the NBA, it is near impossible to build a championship caliber team out of free agency. And it looks like you're seeing a couple teams in the NHL attempting to do that already today. Chicago Blackhawks and the Nashville Predators, two teams in the Central Division that look to me like they know they are in one of the tougher divisions in the league. At least they were near the top. And now you got a bunch of teams that are trying to gear up, I think, to try to squeeze themselves into that conversation. All right, guys, you know what? We are going to go ahead and jump out of this show, Guerilla Sports Daily. We're here every morning. We'll have Liv Moods hosting tomorrow morning at 10. Stick around. In less than 5 minutes right here on Guerilla Sports YouTube and on our X, we will be going live with the Guerilla Hockey Colorado show. We are going over everything in the NHL. I'm having a hard time keeping up with everything that's coming in as Jason Zucker just got himself a 1-year deal with the Buffalo Sabres. So bear with us here. Give us about 3 to 4 minutes, and we'll be right back live talking all things NHL. We got Jay on the board today for this show and the next one, making sure that you guys are seeing and hearing everything you need to. I'm Jesse Montano, Guerilla Sports Daily. We'll see you guys in the morning.